Africa, as we all know, is a very complex environment, so I'm going to remain in these two areas and in regards to the maritime element. I'm going to start off with something that some of you might find interesting, and it's a personal experience that I've lived in the HRA. About 3 years ago, I was a member of an armed security team on board a VLCC transiting the HRA. It was my early morning shift, and as I was scanning the horizon with my binoculars, I identified a small target. Naturally, that freaked me out because it was coming right at us at a very high speed. This I could tell from the wake that it produced. By the time that I notified the officer of the watch and he notified the master and the rest of the team was assembled on the bridge, these targets were at 1 nautical mile, and there were 3. By now, I could pretty much identify that their intent is hostile because on board there were weapons, 4 to 5 people on each skiff, and boarding equipment. Naturally, we had loaded our weapons and we were ready to deter this attack. We fired a warning flare. That, had no effect on them. They didn't care at all. So they kept coming at us. The vessel naturally had applied all its anti-piracy measures, evasive maneuvers, fire pumps, everything was in place. They didn't care at all. Finally, they came to 400 meters and we had to fire 2 warning shots in the water. Now that worked. They stopped, they turned around, kind of looked at us in disgust, waved off, and off they went. The master and the crew were so happy that later that night we had a party, mango juice, dry vessels, no alcohol, but that's a party on a tanker. This I say because it is very important to understand the point of view that the crew has on board the vessel in regards to security. It's different than the point of view that we have being in an office or a non-maritime environment. Last year, I'm sorry, I forgot my slides. This is actually a picture taken that morning. Last year, Aspida CEO Mr. Maniatis in this forum presented the current situation at the time in regards to Somali-based piracy and the threat in the Indian Ocean. What has happened since then is very little change. There are 2 major players in the region, as you all know, that obstruct piracy, and those players are the navies that are doing a very good job in patrolling, escorting vessels, assisting and disrupting pirate action group activity, but they cannot be everywhere within the HRA. The HRA is vast. It's bigger than Europe. So you can understand that even if you had 100 naval assets in the area, it wouldn't be able to respond to each and every call. You have private maritime security companies like us, which protect your vessels. An armed security team on board a client vessel, like the example I gave, will deter an attack. There won't be a hijacking of that vessel. Up to date, no vessel has been hijacked that has an armed security team, and I think this is common knowledge by all. The pirates, my friends. These guys have not just disappeared, right? The conditions in which they work and live are exactly the same. Nothing has changed in Somalia. There have been efforts by the northern breakaway regions to disrupt their activities, but they have not been successful. The federal government of Somalia in the south has managed, with the assistance of the African Union forces and US-led airstrikes, to disrupt Al-Shabaab, which is a major player in Somali-based piracy. But killing their leader didn't stop them. They have another leader, and they have a fresh agenda for the future. Under-reporting or over-reporting. This is a topic of a lot of controversy. The picture that you see behind us is something that I fixed yesterday based on the coordinates that we've received from assets that we protect and the assets that companies with which we work protect as well. And this is the picture of the PMSC in regards to the incidents within the HRA for 2014. It is not the number, but it is the general area and understanding that there is activity in the water. This is the live piracy map of the IMB in regards to the HRA as it is defined by the Joint War Committee for 2014. As you can see, there's a large number of incidents in the Gulf of Guinea, a very small number of incidents in the HRA as we know it, and very few incidents further east. There is a reason for this, and I will come back to it. This is 2013, a lot of incidents in the Gulf of Guinea, some incidents more than 2014 in the HRA, and a lot of incidents in Southeast Asia, the Malacca Straits, South China Sea, and the Bay of Bengal. This is 2012. This picture I like now because, there's a lot of piracy activity in the HRA, which, might be a problem for a lot of people, but for me it's good. As you can see again, the trend is that we have a lot of activity within the HRA and very few in relation to the other years in the Gulf of Guinea. And my favorite year is 2011, where as you can see, it's chaos. It's Somali piracy galore. It's a rave party for them. In the Gulf of Guinea, we don't have so much action. So what we're noticing from this trend, and I'm going to go back to 2014, is that since there is the presence of the PMSEs in the HRA, there has been a significant drop per year in the ability of the pirates to perform their operations. Opposite to that, non-existent PMSEs in the Gulf of Guinea, a rise in their activity. Nigeria. I love that country. I was there recently and I really enjoyed it. I was not on the water, I was on land, that's why I enjoyed it. Nigeria, being the major player in that region, sets the rules and everybody else follows, okay? So the 12 nautical mile limit for the territorial waters is not enough. They put out their territorial rights to the full extent of their exclusive economic zone, which is 250 nautical miles. That leaves a lot of space open with no security. The only security that can be provided to vessels in that region is by host nation security forces. Host nation security forces, we don't know them. We've never seen them. We don't know what they do. They are the armed forces of those countries. We don't know if they're trained. We don't know if they're certified. And we certainly know that they're not insured. So we are not allowed to perform armed security duties in that region. It is left to the host nation security forces, and it is quite complex and it doesn't really work. Gulf of Guinea pirates are totally different than what Somali pirates are. Somali pirates are just gangsters. They want to make a quick buck and get out of there. These guys are different. They're very hostile. They have very little respect for human life. Their motives are not just financial, but basically, primarily political and sociological. Let's see one of those groups, which is the MEND, the Movement for the Emancipation of the Niger Delta. Their title says it alone. We're not in it for the money. We're in it for the big bang. I'm going really fast. I had rehearsed this and I was like 12 minutes in and now it's only 6:44, so I have no idea what I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to carry on. The changing threat environment. I can stay on this one for a very long time. Take away the PMSCs and the navies from the HRA, we're going to see a rise in piracy. What pirates have been doing lately is that they've turned to other business models. We can't pirate and hijack vessels, so we're going to smuggle stuff. We're going to smuggle humans across the Gulf of Aden, we're going to smuggle drugs, and we're going to smuggle weapons. And this is a big business. Doing that business, smuggling khat, which is harvested in the highlands of Somalia and Ethiopia, across the Gulf of Aden, up the Bab el-Mandeb, and further east of the Arabian Peninsula, we can also train on piracy. And that's why you saw the map before that I had drawn with a lot of incidents. Those incidents are mainly suspicious approaches. High-speed skiffs with people on board, weapons, etc., will come close to the vessels. They will stay with them for an X amount of time until they're pushed away. They're probing for the reaction. They want to see how ready these vessels are, if they have armed security teams, how aware and well-trained those security teams are. Eventually, this will lead to a point that they are in the capacity, without the obstacles present at the moment, and able, well-trained, and with a good understanding of the whole domain, again, to perform their successful hijackings. Other than that, we have extremism on the rise. We all know what the Islamic State is doing, and we've seen those horrific pictures on TV, etc. Well, the Islamic State is progressing southwards, and they have a lot of influence. Their actions that have gained a global audience are being mimicked by other groups, and we see that in the Philippines, in Algeria lately, etc. It is my understanding, personally, that we're going to see maritime terrorism again. And when I say maritime terrorism, I basically mean something like this. This is an actual event. This was the motor tanker Limburg. It was a French-flagged vessel in October of 2002, it was attacked in Aden anchorage by a skiff loaded with high explosives. Upon the attack, one crew member was killed and 60,000 barrels of crude were spilled into the water. Since then, and I'm not going to mention military targets like the USS Cole or what recently nearly happened in Pakistan and the Hormuz Straits, I'm going to focus on commercial targets alone. Terrorists want a big audience. They want a global audience, so they want to hit a commercial target in order to gain that acknowledgement. They are also boastful between their communities and amongst themselves. They like to say that, listen, I'm going to do this big thing. What are you going to do? So the basic means in protecting the assets that we need to protect in the future is going to be intelligence. Intelligence gathered on the ground, analyzed by specialists, and by this way we're going to be able to form a picture of the threat in a specific region and how better we can protect the assets within that region. We also need to use new technologies. The model that we've been using up till now is good, but we need more stuff. And that would be an extent of the surveillance area that we have around our asset and our people. Radars will give us 12 to 24 nautical miles, but that's not good enough because they won't see a very small target made out of wood or fiberglass. We need drones, for example, unmanned vehicles that will fly in the air or will hover on the surface of the sea and will extend the surveillance range of our asset to at least 60 nautical miles. They will take pictures and data, which will be relayed in real time to an operations center. Analysts will analyze that information and accordingly deploy the means that are necessary to protect that asset. The last stage of defense, of course, will be the armed security team on board the vessel or the asset that we are protecting, because you cannot fight fire with anything else. Well, I mean, when I say fire, I don't mean the actual fire. You can't fight bullets with anything other than actual bullets, unfortunately. Having said that, and I have some more time, which is great, it is imperative, it is very important, and I can't stress enough how important it is to contract people that know what they're doing, right? We don't want people that are not trained, not certified, and not vetted and audited to a point that we know how they're going to react in a stressful situation on board our vessels with weapons. So I'm going to close my presentation by saying that we should all have zero tolerance for amateur, privately contracted armed security personnel protecting people and very valuable assets. Not only us as companies, not just the organizations, but the clients as well need to be fully aware that they must audit and vet the people that they contract to provide them with security. They must know exactly who is going on board their vessels, carrying weapons and protecting what they have most valuable. Thank you very much.